Chris Arreola walked into that ring carrying something no statistic could measure: pride, emotion, the belief that pressure could crack even the coldest champion. Fighting out of the blue corner, he wasn't just representing himself, he was representing every heavyweight who believed that heart, aggression, and refusal to back down could overcome technique. Across from him stood Vitali Klitschko, a man who never needed to shout dominance. He wore it. Taller, calmer, mechanically awkward but brutally effective, Vitali didn't bounce or posture. He observed. From the opening seconds, the contrast was obvious. Areola surged forward with intent, loading up, trying to turn the fight into chaos. Vitali responded with inches, small steps backward, slight angles, a probing jab that landed not to hurt but to measure. This wasn't a firefight, it was an examination. Areola wanted volume, Vitali wanted distance. Every exchange revealed the truth early. Areola's punches were loud, but Vitali were clean. A jab here, a straight right sneaking through as Areola leaned in. The champion didn't rush, didn't chase, didn't panic. He allowed Areola to work, knowing that effort without efficiency always comes with a cost. The crowd felt the tension. The commentators sensed it. This wasn't about who wanted it more, it was about who understood it better. And as the first rounds unfolded, one thing became clear. Vitali Klitschko wasn't fighting Areola's fists. He was fighting his rhythm. And once you take a fighter's rhythm, everything else begins to fall apart. As the fight settled into its pace, Vitali Klitschko began doing what elite heavyweights do best. He made the ring smaller without ever moving forward. Areola continued to press, throwing hooks, looping shots, trying to bully his way inside. But every step he took forward met resistance. A stiff jab snapped his head back. A short right hand interrupted his momentum. An uppercut punished him for leaning. Vitali's punches didn't look violent in isolation, but together they formed a system, a constant reminder that aggression alone wouldn't buy access. What made it worse was Vitali's posture. His hands stayed low. His chin appeared open. To an inexperienced eye, it looked reckless. To Areola, it looked like opportunity. But every time he tried to capitalize, he paid for it. Vitali understood distance in a way few heavyweights ever have. He knew exactly how far away danger lived, and he lived just outside of it. Areola's confidence began to flicker. The punches that once came in bunches started arriving one at a time. His feet slowed. His shoulders tightened. Meanwhile, Vitali looked unchanged. He stepped laterally, turned Areola, and reset the fight again and again with the jab. This wasn't dominance through power. This was dominance through denial. Denial of angles, denial of comfort, denial of hope. The crowd could feel the shift even before the scorecards reflected it. Areola was still coming forward, still trying, still believing, but belief without success is exhausting, and Vitali knew exactly how long exhaustion takes to show. By the middle rounds, the fight had entered its most revealing phase, not physically, but emotionally. Chris Arreola was still throwing, still pressing, still refusing to surrender ground, but something fundamental had changed. His punches no longer carried expectation. They carried hope. Blood began to show around his nose, a visible marker of the punishment accumulating beneath the surface. Each time he stepped in, Vitali met him with precision, not trying to end the fight, only to control it. That restraint was the cruelty. Areola wanted exchanges. He wanted chaos. Vitali refused to give him either. Instead, he gave him silence. The silence of clean shots landing unanswered. The silence of a champion who never looked rushed, never looked tired, never looked unsure. Areola's face told the story before his body did. The emotion he brought into the ring began to work against him. Frustration crept in. Doubt followed. Yet he kept coming because that's who he was. Because quitting was never an option, but boxing doesn't reward bravery without structure. Vitali's conditioning became a weapon. Round after round, his breathing stayed calm. His footwork stayed sharp. His timing stayed exact. Areola, meanwhile, started absorbing punches he couldn't avoid simply because he had to be somewhere. This is the point where fights are truly decided, not when a man falls, but when he realizes he can't change the outcome. And in those moments, you could see it in Areola's eyes. He wasn't beaten. He was being dismantled. As the later rounds approached, the difference between a contender and a champion became undeniable. Chris Arreola was fighting on instinct now, fueled by pride and crowd support, throwing whatever he could summon. Vitali Klitschko, on the other hand, was fighting on understanding. Every jab served a purpose. Every right hand landed as Areola entered range, never after. Vitali's feet were doing just as much damage as his fists, stepping out, pivoting, forcing Areola to reset again and again. The harder Areola tried to close distance, the more energy he burned chasing a target that refused to stand still. This was where Vitali's experience shined brightest. He didn't smother his work. He didn't overcommit. He allowed Areola to survive just long enough to continue paying the price for effort. The crowd began to quiet. The chants faded. The realization set in. This wasn't a fight that would end with a single devastating punch. This was a fight ending through accumulation, physical, mental, emotional. Areola's punches slowed. His reactions dulled. Vitali, still upright, still balanced, still calculating, continued to land at will. This wasn't bullying. This was ownership. Ownership of space. Ownership of tempo. Ownership of the outcome. And when a fighter owns all three, the ending becomes a formality rather than a question. When the referee finally stepped in, it wasn't because Chris Arreola had given up. It was because his body had already done so for him. He stood there, emotional, drained, still willing, but no longer able. That's what made this fight resonate. Areola never stopped trying. He never stopped pressing. He never stopped believing. And still, it wasn't enough. Vitali Klitschko didn't celebrate wildly. He didn't roar. He simply accepted the result like a man who expected nothing else. This was the essence of his reign: cold efficiency, relentless structure, no wasted motion, no wasted energy. The fight reinforced a truth that boxing teaches better than any other sport. Heart gets you into battles, but mastery decides them. Areola earned respect for his courage. Vitali earned authority for his control. This wasn't a highlight reel knockout. It was something more instructive, a lesson in distance, timing, conditioning, and mental discipline. The kind of fight that young boxers need to study and fans need to understand, because domination doesn't always look explosive. Sometimes it looks quiet, calculated, inevitable. And on that night, inside that ring, Vitali Klitschko didn't just defend his title. He demonstrated why, at heavyweight, understanding always outlasts emotion.